Today's spooky story from King Diamond is them, but who are them? So this has the first lineup change for King Diamond's group since probably the beginning, because I consider Merciful Fate and King Diamond to sort of be like the same thing. But I forgot to mention that Mickey D, a very good drummer that's currently with Motorhead, played on the first two albums, and he continues to play, and I believe the rest of his 80s albums, he's still on this one. But they changed the secondary lead guitars. They still have Andy LaRocca, or whatever the fuck his name is, and he'll be on every King Diamond album, but they got rid of Michael Denner, who was from Merciful Fate, and they replaced him with Pete Black on this album. And they have Hal Pitano on bass instead of Timmy Hansen. So I think the production of this album is actually, in my opinion, kind of a step up. It sounds very crisp and clear. The guitars aren't as cutthroat, but like I said, it just sounds really, really well mastered. Now, in my opinion, this is probably the best King Diamond story of them all. It's actually pretty spooky and probably would be the best for like making a horror movie out of. It's a complete good story. The story itself isn't very cheesy. I think it's well done, but the problem with this album, and a problem with a lot of other King Diamond albums, and it's especially apparent in this one during his golden period, is that for a lot of his albums he would sacrifice melody and good writing for just cramming lyrics in to make a good story, if you get what I'm saying, where he just wrote out a story and then tried to make it into lyric form. It just sounds really awkward. But there are parts of this album that do sound very good, that do actually feel like full-on songs, especially like the third track, the second song, if you will. That one is actually pretty well structured and has some really good melodies in there. Now, the performances up here are good, but they're noticeably not as good. Like some of the leads are not as good because Michael Denner's not around. But I think it still has a spooky atmosphere in it. You could tell a lot of it was written by King. There was a lot of great organ stuff going on, and Andy does have some good writing credits here. Came out in 1988, and the artwork is very cool. One of my favorite King Diamond artworks that features the house that them reside in. So the first track we have is Out from the Asylum, which is just kind of a little intro. There's a lot of cool vocal stuff going on here. You can hear them talking at the beginning. Them are essentially ghosts. There's ghosts residing there, but I think they only show up when the grandma's there. And Out from the Asylum, well, their grandma was insane, so they had her in asylum for years. So then she came back, and I think she's the one that has something to do with these spirits, I guess. Maybe she conjured them and they stay there when she comes back or whatever. So that's all that track is. They just welcome her back in the house, and you hear some funny vocals like King doing this voice where he's like, "She makes a good cup of tea." Doesn't really do much for the story. I'm not really going to give it a rating. There's not really music to it. Then we have Welcome Home, which is pretty badass. It's heavy, it's totally speed metal, and there's some crazy riffs here. And there's some really great screams from King Diamond. And there's a lot of cheesy parts in here, but only King Diamond can pull off screaming, "Grandma!" The riff in there is very badass and memorable. And this is one of the songs where it feels a lot less like a bulk of the story, like he just shoved in lyrics. It actually feels more like a good, concise song. I love this chorus where it gets kind of slow and heavy. "Let me help you out of the chair, my good grandma." The solo work in there is absolutely incredible, and it just keeps going with that awesome heavy pace. The middle has a really good solo section. It gets really, really fast, and some incredible solos in there, and great screams. Then we have my favorite song off the album, Invisible Guests. This one is fucking awesome. It begins normal, and then gets kind of like really fast. Then it gets really fucking awesome where they have these amazing guitar harmonies. I think there's even an organ in there. It's that little intro bit that they play before every verse. This song sounds like classic King Diamond. There's some really good riffs in there, some awesome time changes and drumming from Mickey D. The guitar solos are really cool, and they have like organs and keyboards playing along with them, and it makes an awesome, creepy harmony. The singing parts of the song are actually pretty good, and I'd say this is one where he sort of crams a little bit of lyrics in there, but I think he doesn't sacrifice too much of the songwriting, so I think the song is very catchy still, and it does have some really good riffs. And in this part of the story, I think King walks in on his grandma having, like, tea with ghosts, like floating teapots and shit. It's kind of creepy. And the part before the solo is actually really cool. King sings this really great, memorable vocal part, and then it kicks into some completely apeshit guitar solos. It has that really awesome, heavy, driving riffage to it that sounds very much like something off Abigail. Then we have, in my opinion, probably the weakest song on the album. I used to really like tea. This one's, I think, King sits down with his grandma and them and has tea. And I think she sort of puts a spell over King and sort of like the whole family. This is sort of like, with a lot of King Diamond albums, the first couple songs with the story are just kind of slow. Then, pretty much after this point, it just goes apeshit story-wise. It's very slow and kind of monotonous and kind of cheesy, although I do like the chorus because it is pretty beautiful, but the rest of it's just really slow, boring riffs, and it's not even like doomy or creepy. It just sounds very cheesy. Then we have a very, very heavy song, Mother's Getting Weaker. There's some really good parts in here. There's some really cool speed metal-y sort of stuff in there, and I do really like the chorus quite a bit. And it does kind of become one of those songs where there's too many crammed lyrics, and there are some really good high notes from King Diamond as well. But even though he hits like really good high notes, especially in the chorus, there's some like really weird notes he hits during the verse that kind of ruin that a little bit. It is probably one of the darker songs in the album though, and it has this really creepy atmosphere, and it has a really great opening, by the way. There's a lot of great time changes in there. And then right when it's going into the fast solo section, it has this really cool organ build up to it. And in this part of the story, like I said, the grandma put like a curse in the family, and their mother or whatever is probably like sick in bed or something because of the ghosts and spirits fucking with her. Now we have a really, really good song called Bye Bye Missy, and with this song it's kind of weird because they do cram a lot of lyrics in this one, but I think it's still done tastefully. The music in there is really good and memorable. It kind of reminds me a little bit of The Possession from Abigail, where it's this really heavy, kick-ass song, and there's a lot of great vocal melodies in there that are very catchy. Overall, it does this really good arcing vocal melody throughout the entire verse. I think it's very catchy and very cool. And then it goes into some awesome guitar solos, and there's this kind of funny part where it changes the riff a little bit, and King sings these really weird vocal melodies. It's kind of one of those parts where he's just cramming in the story, not really going much anywhere. And in this part of the story, Missy, King's sister, is very, very concerned about their mother's well-being, and like King doesn't give a shit because the ghost's powers are overwhelming him, so he can't decide anymore. He's essentially possessed. Missy like breaks one of the teapots or something, and then the ghosts again, or they, pretty much chop her into bits with an axe and shit, and she's killed. That's why it's called Bye Bye Missy. Now, Broken Spell is a very, very good classic sounding power metal song. It has this awesome sort of gallop to it. There's some good melodies here and there. I think he doesn't cram too many lyrics except maybe later in the song. But I think it is very good. I kind of like the part where he says, when the teapot was broken, I sort of realized that the power was less here on the outside, which in this part of the story, I think he breaks one of the teapots or something that's controlling him. So then he knows, sort of, during this point, he sort of knows what he has to do. He has to, I think, kill his grandma or something, or stop them, or they, or whatever the fuck, from controlling everyone. There are some really great high notes King sings in the chorus. And then towards the end of it, sort of like after the end of the middle part where it starts going into the solos, towards the end there, it gets really awesome. It builds up to this fucking explosion, and the guitar solos go apeshit. It's very fast towards that part, and it feels like a really good conclusion to the song. This song's very cool. The Accusation chair has this really awesome heavy riff to it, and King hits some less high notes and goes for this more gruff, hard-edged vocal style that's actually really cool and appropriate for this song. There are some really creepy parts in the song. This is probably one of the more creepy songs in the album. There's some really cool guitar riffs in there, some really great changes. There's this part in the middle where King does this really creepy thing on the piano. It starts out with this really awesome heavy riff and then progresses in these awesome guitar solos like they always do. Another amazing song. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I think in this part, because the end becomes kind of confusing. But what happens towards the end is that he kills the grandma, and then them, or they're still around, I guess, but their power is less. And he's able to convince her to go outside and then kills her. Now we have Them, which is a really, really cool instrumental. It's very short, but it's very classical and cool. It has like acoustic guitar that plays this really beautiful thing. Then they progress with it with like keyboards and organs and shit. It sounds very cool. It sounds like a fucking little classical piece, and I wish they would have done a little bit more with this song. It's actually one of my favorite songs of the album. It's just a little instrumental thing. Then we had Twilight Symphony, which is the last full-on song on the album. It's very cool. It does have some cool power metal melodies in there. This is considered, I believe, one of his best songs, and it is a cool conclusion to the album. And I believe in this one the cops find out what happened, but they think King killed all of them. Because, of course, he did kill Grandma, and then it looks bad if he'd killed Grandma, and then Missy's dead as well. So he gets accused of murdering them, but he says, no, the ghost did it. So, of course, they throw him in the mental asylum. There are some cool melodies in here, but it kind of feels like the verses plot on a little bit too much, because it is sort of a little mid-tempo, but I do think the lead melodies are really great, and the guitar solos at the end are awesome as well. Then it goes into this awesome, thrashy, groovy riff at the end that's very, very fucking cool. Then we have Coming Home at the very end. It's sort of like Out from the Asylum. It's a little outro. I think this one's about King coming back from the asylum, and it's sort of like the exact same thing. Overall good story, a little confusing towards the end, and a good album, but it just feels like they could have perfected a lot of these songs, so I'm going to give this one a 9.3. It was a pretty good album, but I think he does a little bit better with the next two.
It's good to see you again, despite what you did to my throat. They are waiting upstairs. Come. Missy's there too. She's sitting on Grandpa's lap. I bet